Hello everybody, it's me John aka Nosey, and you join me for something a little bit different. We are in October of course, and we are not far away from Halloween. I thought to do a series of videos, a couple of videos, talking about some of my favourite horror films. These are just my personal picks, my personal horror films that I've always enjoyed. And I always go back to these. Yeah, so let's have some fun. Let's talk about some horror flicks, shall we? Let's talk about one of my personal favourites. So the first one I'm bringing in is Ju-on the Grudge. The original Japanese Grudge films. Now, obviously, it is technically kind of like a little mini franchise. There's two original... Well, there is two Japanese ones, and then there's a third one that is technically... It is more or less more like a Japanese American, the third one is not the best, but it's basically it's kind of like a combination of America and Japan, with technically you could say the third one in the films. But the first two Ju-on the Grudge films are among my favourites ever. When I first found out about this, I believe my friend Sam told me about this film. He saw it before me, I believe, and he told me you need to check out this film. It's like a ghost film. It's a Japanese film, horror film obviously from Japan, and it's it features an actual contortionist that plays the cursed spirit. And it's really, really creepy. You need to check it out. And obviously, I love my creepy stuff, and I love my suspense, and I love my psychological stuff. So I go and check it out, as you do. And I believe I rented it, actually. This was back in the day of when we had a movie rental shop just literally down the road from me. And I think a lot of these films, for the first time, I rented them to check them out before I purchased them later on. And so I rented it from the video rental store that was near me, and I just fell in love with it. Absolutely fell in love with it. Everything about the Ju-on the Grudge films, especially the first two. Now, yes, there is American remakes. They are okay. Basically what they did is they just basically a lot of the characters were obviously American, like the main female character that was kind of investigating the house and the curse. They still brought back some of the original actors from the original Ju-on the film. Certain characters kind of like reprised their roles, mostly for the woman that played the cursed spirit. But what I do love about the originals, they just have an essence about them. They just have this essence about them that I truly love. To this day, after watching Ju-on the Grudge, the first two, to this day I do not see lofts or attics that are open in the same light. Because ever since watching that, whenever I see an open loft or an open something up in the ceiling, it's all open, all you can see is the pitch black darkness of nothingness. And all I can think of in the back of my mind is the sound of when she's going to appear, or something popping its head out as I'm looking up. So it's very psychological. It is a type of film that really does stick with you. And I don't think there's really been anything quite like the atmosphere that film, for me, really does, like... Yeah, there's just something about the Ju-on the Grudge films, the originals. It's very offsetting. It's a little bit confusing at first as well, because there's the story features, or it follows different characters, all these different characters that are sort of caught in the web of the curse. You've got like at least about 3 generations of characters that are affected throughout the course of the films. And then obviously the curse spirit original then eventually does actually find its way moving out away from the house. So anyone that's been in the house where the curse spirit is, anyone that has laid eyes on that spirit and somehow escapes the house, the curse follows them. That spirit follows them no matter where they go. And that is part of the unsettling feeling of it, is that it's pretty much tracking down anybody that has witnessed it, anyone that has saw the epiphany of the replay of what happened to the woman and to the young boy, and basically the husband murdering his wife, murdering the child, and taking his own life in the house. It is all basically anyone that has like witnessed that through the curse of the spirit. Yeah, you are basically, it's game over. Let's just put it that way. Yeah, I've always loved those films, and I always loved going back to them. I always loved checking them out again, time after time after time. Fantastic films. If you've never seen the original Drew on the Grudge films, I recommend. If you are a big fan of horror films and you like psychological horror, and you like the whole ghost curse sort of storylines, then this will be right down your ballpark. The next film in this first video, the next film I'm going to talk about is Train to Busan. So we are now moving away from Japan and we're now going to South Korea, or Korean horror. And I've always been a massive fan ever since I've ever watched a zombie movie. I've always been fascinated with that genre of movies, or that sort of storytelling of apocalyptic, the world is ending, resurrected corpses, anything like that. I've always loved. I've always really enjoyed. Train to Busan, when I first heard of this film, I actually saw this film for the first time on a channel called Film 4. They had it on very late on. It was about 11 or 12 o'clock. It was like the last film that they were showing before the channel shut off for the day. And it was like the very last film in the roster of films that was showing on there on Film 4. And that's where I saw the film for the first time. So I check out the film, and I knew nothing of it before seeing it. It was a totally, like, going in blind. And I like going into horror films blind. Whenever I go see any film, really, I like to go in blind. I don't like to know too much about it. I like to make my own mind up. And Train to Busan, the whole idea of it, them just pretty much just being on a train, the whole duration of the film is pretty much them on a train. And then basically a zombie outbreak happens while they're on the train. All the people that are on the train have got to kind of work together to kind of like help save themselves. Things go wrong, people get killed, people get turned, and so on and so forth. And then eventually they do find their way off the train, and they end up going into the city, and finding and trying to kind of get to safety. And the whole idea of Train to Busan is it follows a father and daughter. There's a bit of a relationship breakdown, I think, happening. I think the father it's his turn, I think, to have the child, I think. And he's basically the whole idea is they're going to Busan, Train to Busan. They're going to Busan, and they're on the way there on the train with this father and daughter. They're going to basically, I think he's taking his daughter to the kid's mother. So basically the whole film centers around those two characters. They are the pinnacle two characters, the father and daughter. And then a lot of stuff happens. Basically the train stops, as it does at a station, and then this strange person, somehow they hear of some issues going on the platform, people being attacked on the platform, and then this woman ends up getting on the train, and then kind of like almost like this person dies, which technically does, this character or this person then comes back to life, and like they use actual contortionists. I love when in horror films where they use contortionists and you hear the cracking of the bodies, and I love that stuff. It's so cool. But yeah. So basically, this person comes back to life again, obviously a zombie, and then starts attacking all the passengers. And then in turn, the passengers one by one are basically turned into zombies. And then it's basically kind of like a survival thing on the train. And this father and daughter have to somehow battle to try and save themselves. And they have to get to a safe zone. Basically, a lot of survivors, they've set up a designated quarantine zone where it's a safe haven, and they're trying to get to this place where the military and the police and so on and so forth are basically maintaining order and basically trying to, like a safe haven sort of thing. And that's basically the objective, is to get to this place. So most of the film is on the train, and then they do eventually get off the train, and they have to kind of deal with the city, with the, try to get to a safe haven. And yeah, without going into specifics of the film, just in case people haven't seen it, I don't want to go into massive specifics and spoiler territory, but it is a brilliant, brilliant film. It has to be, for me, one of the best zombie flicks I've seen, next to George A. Romero stuff, like the Godfather, or the father of what made the whole genre popular in the first place. But yeah, it's just, for me personally, Train to Busan is just such a really good feast to anyone that is a fan of that type of horror film. It has obviously proper contortionists that are playing the zombies when they come back. It's vicious. It's people being ripped apart left, right, and centre. It's showing the true meaning of humanity in that moment as well. Is that how some people are so up their own arse and they will happily let somebody get killed just to save their own arse. Things like that. It shows the true meaning of what people will be like in that environment, in that situation. And it's literally just a father and daughter just having just on the train as like commuting like everybody else, and they just get caught in this madness, this nightmare. And it's such a good film, and I recommend Train to Busan to anybody that is a fan of horror or zombie films. It is an absolute beautiful film, and I recommend it. So the third film I've technically mentioned in the second mention with Train to Busan, that I mentioned a certain person's name, Mr. George A. Romero. Now, I couldn't make a video list without at least mentioning George A. Romero and the film that really kind of made the zombie thing really, really popular. And that is, of course, The Night of the Living Dead, which is the very original George A. Romero film. So that is my number 3 choice. Now, I obviously prefer, obviously they made a colour version, and there is a couple versions of this film. There's like a director's cut of it, there's on the original black and white one, and then obviously there's a full coloured one. I prefer the black and white one personally, because that's how it was intended, that's how it was visually for the time. It was intended to be black and white. It made things much easier. Also, it worked for the approach with the zombies, because they used like a grey face paint for the zombies in the George A. Romero films, and it works better in black and white. But yeah, I absolutely love anything by George A. Romero. He's like the master. But when it comes to The Night of the Living Dead, it has, yes, you could argue it hasn't really aged well to like today's standards, but you've got to really kind of see, like, it really did embrace, and it really did kind of, it kind of started the whole zombie thing. It kind of made it very, very popular. If it wasn't for George A. Romero and his films, the zombie thing wouldn't be what it is today. it did inspire a lot of movie makers and other people. Same with people for like Train to Busan, for instance. They use some nuances for that, and it's also a majority of media that brings zombies into it. They do use like visual cues, and they do use certain things that George Romero did. So you can't deny the man. George Romero was a master of his craft, and The Night of the Living Dead is an all-time classic, and it will always remain one of my favorite horror films of all time. The fourth film in this video is going to be, yeah, well, this one needs no introduction for me because this is actually the film that started my love or my interest in horror films, especially this genre of horror films, which is technically part of like the slasher type kind of genre of horror. Yeah, it has to be the 1974 film, the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Now, yeah, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the 1974, the original, was the first horror film that really kind of got me into it, and especially the gore stuff as well. The really, really kind of warped kind of horror films that I have grown to love over the years. And the funny story with this one is I saw this on normal TV for the first time, and it was after The Watershed. It was about maybe 10 o'clock-ish or something like that it came on. My mum and dad had gone to bed, and obviously at the time I was about maybe 12 or 13, maybe around about that, about 12, when I saw the film for the first time. And this was a weekend, I believe. There was no school the next day. I believe it was a Friday or Saturday when this film came on. And yeah, my mum and dad went to bed. And next minute, my mum shouts down the stairs something she never should have done. Really, she says, "There's a film on Channel 5. Do not watch it. It is awful." So typical 12-year-old brain, I go interested, and I go and I check out the film. I turn it on to Channel 5. Just as the girl was being put onto the hook. So Leatherface has this girl, captures her, and he basically just kebabs her onto this hook. And for that point, I was hooked. Pun intended. But yeah, I was absolutely hooked from that point on. And I absolutely love the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Even to this day, it's dated. You can tell it's a property of its time, the way it comes over. However, it's still a pinnacle of cinema, especially that type of cinema. Obviously, it was originally based on Ed Gein. Originally, Ed Gein was one of the inspirations behind the film. Who was a real life serial killer, which kind of put a lot of intrigue and a lot of interest behind behind the scenes of the film when it came to general audiences as well, reacting to it. As obviously the whole Ed Gein thing, well, obviously there's many films been inspired by by him, but the Texas Chainsaw Massacre was one of them as well. Mostly when it comes to him basically cutting off bits of people and making masks out of human faces and skin, and all the furniture in the house everything was made out of human skin, and all that kind of thing with his family as well. So that essence of Ed Gein was very much part of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre film. Now, I only really like the original, the 1974 film, but they did make a second one. I believe they made a couple of them, I believe, maybe two or three of them, but the sequels aren't anywhere near as good, in my opinion. They have done a lot of remakes of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre films. There is, I think, one, I can't remember the name, I can't remember what year it came out, but there is one remake of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre I do like. I think it came out in like the early 2000s, early to mid 2000s, but I don't mind that one. But for me, it is always going to be the original, the 1974 film. That is my pinnacle favourite horror film. It got me into slasher horror because it is technically part of the slasher thing. Even though he does use a chainsaw mostly, and he uses any sort of object to, to get the victims, but it's mostly a chainsaw. But yeah, it is technically part of the whole slasher genre, and it got me into slasher horror. It got me into very gory, very psychological horror, and that was pretty much that film paved the way for me as to become a horror movie fan. So yeah, that has to be my number 4 pick for this film, for this video. So the very last number 5. So this video is only going to consist of 5 films, just to make things so this video doesn't linger on too long. But my very last pick for this video, like I said, it's going to be at least a couple more. Wreck. Wreck is technically a found footage film. It's technically based like that, so it's like a point of view film. It starts off through like body cam, like basically like showing you for like body cam footage of people going in. And it's basically kind of boring on the zombie thing, but it's not zombie there. It's basically a virus. It's basically it's a virus that basically anyone that is contaminated with this virus becomes incredibly violent and basically just kills whoever is there, anything, dogs, cats, pets, what have you, and they will start eating that person. They just become absolutely just... It's like humans with rabies. It's kind of like boring on the whole rabies thing. They basically just get contaminated with some kind of virus, and it just makes them become unhuman, and they just become very violent. And it's basically just the whole film is centered around like a housing complex, I believe. It's like some people living in an apartment building. And obviously there is more stuff going on outside. It's like the whole country, or it's like a massive problem outside of the building, but yet the whole focus point is mostly on this building, and it's like through kind of like the point of view of certain like first responders, like firefighters, police officers, all sorts of people that are trying to maintain the issue that's going on within the building, within the complex. And it's just, I just love the uneasiness of it because it's so aggressive, very violent, very bloody, very gory. Now, this is a foreign film, of course, but they did do an American remake of it called Quarantine. So basically, if you've seen the film Quarantine, it is basically the English version of it, but it's still good, but personally, for me, the film Wreck is better because it's subtitled and because it's in a different language. I believe it's Spanish. I will double check that when I'm editing the video, and I'll put it there so that I'm correct or not. But I will let you know in the editing process with that one. But yeah, it's a foreign film, but I believe I went to cinema to see it for the first time, and I just fell in love with it, and I've seen it a few times since, and I just really like it. It's just, I love the atmosphere of it. I love the visceral feeling of it. I love the first person, the point of view sort of approach to it, which is technically like a found footage film where it's from like so it's basically someone's got a camera and it's all happening in real time as that person is navigating what's going on, and just being thrown into this nightmarish sort of scenario. And I just love films like that. And Wreck just worked on so many levels for me personally. The makeup, the special effects, the actors playing the infected were really good. The actors did a really good. I think that the way they were acting, you generally felt like they really was terrified. It felt like the actors were genuinely terrified in that moment, and you can feel that energy. You can feel that energy as you're watching it, and yeah, I just love Wreck. It is just a great film. If you haven't seen it and you're a fan of like foreign horror movies, I recommend that film as well, as it is a really good, visually beautiful. It's all in it's like there's some segments that are in infrared, so the power goes out, and some of it they're using infrared scopes and infrared goggles and stuff like that to navigate around, and it's so cool. But yeah, thank you so much. That is basically the very first video in this little series of me talking about my personal horror films. Now, not everybody's going to agree with my suggestions or my thoughts on some of these films. Some people, everyone is, everyone has the right to their own opinions and that. But like I say, this video is not to annoy anybody in particular. It's not like a favourite list, like a top 5, like 1 to 5 or 1 to 10 or what have you. It is not like that at all. It is just a bit of fun, me talking about some of my personal favourite horror films, but in this kind of format. So, but let me know in the comments below this video, what do you think of these films? Have you seen the films that I've just spoken about? What are your thoughts on them? And do you have any suggestions of anything I can check out that isn't mentioned? Like I say, I will be making more of these videos going forward. I have made a list of all the films I've seen, horror films that are some of my favourites, and I will talk about a majority of them. So keep your eyes peeled. Thank you for watching. Take care of yourselves, and bye-bye for now. And please remember to like, subscribe, and comment, and share this video with whoever you wish. Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.